Good morning, everybody. Almost afternoon. Welcome to the discussion panel of the changing retail landscape. Everybody hear me? Good. My name is Keith Archer, partner of the law firm of Harris Bloom & Archer. We do an extensive amount of real estate to represent clients in real estate development on Long Island and other areas. And I'll be moderating the discussion. I'm pleased to have a very distinguished panel of participants in no particular order. You can raise your hand. Can't see the placard. Ken Schuckman, who's president of Schuckman Realty. Schuckman Realty is a full-service realty firm. I've done a lot of work with Ken, but I've done work with Ken's father going way back, and they do a lot of work, a lot of retail work, Long Island, but also in New York City and New Jersey. And I'm just doing abbreviated biographies. There's a lot more that can be said about all of our participants. Kristen DeLuca. Kristen is a professional engineer, project manager at Boulder Engineering. Boulder Engineering I've worked with many times. Does an extensive amount of retail development, civil engineering development. It's really a multidiscipline firm here on Long Island, and their offices stretch to Texas. So they're well known to the development community. Anand Olson. Anand is the Vice President of Development for Brookfield Asset Management, which is a global investor and manager of diverse properties, including retail, office, residential, hospitality, and other sectors. I couldn't calculate how many square feet are under control or controlled or managed by Brookfield. It was just, you may know the number, but they're global. They're global. But from our perspective, Anand is responsible for sourcing, planning, and executing development of mixed-use properties in all asset classes. So he'll be able to give us a good discussion on not only Long Island, but also perhaps what you're doing in the city. So welcome. Frank Camerano. Frank is the past president of the East Meadow Chamber of Commerce and is presently the first vice president of the Nassau County Chambers of Commerce, the umbrella organization of the Nassau County Chambers. Frank's day job is running the World Gym in East Meadow, which he and his family have been in the fitness business for about 30 years, right? About 30 years. But Frank is here really as a representative of the various Nassau County Chambers of Commerce. Diane Burke. Diane is presently the executive director of the East End Arts Council, a not-for-profit arts organization serving the 5 East End towns of Long Island. The East End Arts Council provides educational and other art-related programs to the East End communities, and Diane has an extensive background in finance and marketing. We're going to be talking to her a little bit about Main Street in Riverhead. So, the title of this panel is The Changing Retail Landscape. All of us have witnessed and participated in the significant changes being made in the retail landscape, particularly in the area of e-commerce. Depending upon what you read, online sales now account for somewhere between 10 and 12% of all retail sales. We are told that e-commerce sales are growing 3 times faster than traditional brick and mortar sales, and that this year, through April of 2019, approximately 5,994 stores, brick and mortar stores, have closed. 2,641 have opened. But compared with all of 2018, in which it was reported that there were 5,864 store closures for the whole year and 3,239 openings. So it appears that we are witnessing a shift in the traditional retail paradigm, which is what we're going to discuss as one of the topics here. A shift, by the way, that we hope could lead to smarter development, which is why we're all here. So since this is a Smart Growth Summit, and the focus of our discussion will be to explore the retail market today, what we want to discuss is what we're seeing today in our downtown areas in terms of a shift or transformation from the older retail spaces to mixed use and other development and what it foreshadows for the future. We also want to discuss whether based upon the current retail economy, there are new and better opportunities to be made for many of these retail properties on Long Island. So, with that said, let me ask the panelists this question. And it's a general type of question in terms of what you've seen in your various capacities over the past year or so, 2 years, in our downtown areas in terms of a shift in the type of retail development. Is this as a result of, in your view, e-commerce? Is that the catalyst for the shift? Or is it something more? Is it the fact that perhaps consumers are spending more time, more money in Target, Costco, lower cost stores, or it could be a combination of all of those factors? So whoever wants to answer first, I'm going to ask all of the panelists the same question. Because you kind of represent different areas of Long Island, and Kristen, you do work all over Long Island. So why don't we start with Diane?
Hi, my name is Diane Burke. I run the East End Arts Council. We have 2 art galleries on Main Street, Riverhead. That an art gallery sells art, so we're not a museum. So we are a retail experience. And I also run a music and art school. So people are funneling in and out of my buildings all day long, all week long. What I've noticed since joining Riverhead about a year ago, I was previously the CEO of Habitat for Humanity, which I ran a 40,000 square foot retail space. The difference really breaks down to bringing people into the downtown versus we have a huge retail development in Riverhead on Route 58, which is very different than what happens in the downtown area. So your Costco, your Target, your Walmart, all are on Route 58. So bringing the people for those types of experience to 58 takes them away from the downtown. So our focus in our downtown revitalization has been, what does that retail landscape look like? So for me, what it's been is about changing the attitude of people coming to downtown because they want an experience. They want not just to buy something, but they want that experience to couple along with buying something. And if you're delivering an experience and a good product and your employees are well trained, people are going to come back. It's when you miss the mark on those things that people won't return. The last year for East End Arts has been very transformative. We changed the direction of what we are showing in our art galleries. We are going back to our roots and we're bringing art that is more powerful. And we're bringing people, we had a detour exhibit this summer, which our whole premise was to create a detour through Riverhead before you hit Points East. And so what we had to have in our locations were things that were going to make people take that turn, make people come to us rather than going somewhere else. And it worked. It worked because we offered a quality product. Our art gallery, when you walk in, is clean, it's inviting. Our staff was well trained. They knew about the art, they knew what was happening. They were able to engage the consumer that came in. But we also had a whole nother back end that wasn't there before. We had a web presence. So we were able to sell art on web. We were able to reach people through the web. We had folks from New York City that had never been to Riverhead before, had driven past Riverhead 100 times before they hit the Hamptons, coming to our art gallery and coming back. So we did another exhibit following the detour exhibit called Frankie Says, which was a New York City themed punk exhibit, photography exhibit, and video. And the video that we were showing in our art gallery in Riverhead had been at the Guggenheim the fall before. So it's about creating experiences, training your staff, and welcoming people in without also having sort of a back-end business that's not just about foot traffic coming in the front door.
Hi, I'm Kristen DeLuca. I work for Boulder Engineering. We do extensive work on Long Island in many of the downtown areas, as well as some of the bigger box areas, like you were mentioning, the destination shopping centers. And we see it in both markets, the keyword being the experience. These big box stores that are closing the malls, they're now backfilling them with Dave & Buster's, Round One. We didn't get it, the application didn't move forward, but we worked on an aquarium that was looking to go into Sunrise Mall. Retailers are looking for an experience to drive people there, whether it's the food. It used to be that you would go to the mall to go shopping and they would offer you food and experiences as a secondary to keep you there a little longer. Now it's the experience that's driving you there, and the retailers are more secondary to keep you there a little bit longer. So you see that switch in both the big box and malls as well as the downtown areas. And the key to the online shopping, it's the retailers who embrace the online experience with their brick and mortar are the ones that are very successful. There was statistics that I just heard earlier this week that when stores are open, an actual brick and mortar store, their online sales increase about 30%. So the brick and mortar is important when you can embrace giving the customer an experience. When they can come in and feel and see it and then go order it and have it, maybe that size isn't there or that exact color or type, but then they can order it and have it at their house within a couple of days. That's the experience that people are looking for. I'm also working on the new Islanders Arena project at Belmont, and along with that project, there's 300,000 square feet of retail. And people are saying, well, why are you bringing all that there? But they're developing it as an experience. It's a destination. It's not just another shopping center. The way they're designing it, they're pulling people in from New York City as this destination, not just to go shopping at one of the stores there.
Thank you. My name is Anand Olson. I'm with Brookfield Properties in New York City. Like the introduction, we have property all over the world, retail property, multifamily property, and we actually just invested in a mall company last year. We bought 150 malls across the country in kind of very well located retail centers. And those retail centers were kind of developed in the 60s and 70s when downtowns were kind of coming out of favor and people were moving to the suburbs. People were getting further and further away from their downtowns, and they kind of drew all those businesses and kind of sucked all those businesses out of the downtowns. But what we're going back and trying to do now is kind of replicate these downtowns, because like Kristen said, what people want is an experience. They want to be able to work, live, play in one kind of environment, not necessarily have to get into your car and drive somewhere. So what cities and planners from the past have kind of created organically, especially here on Long Island, where you have a kind of a vital, or kind of an infrastructure of a downtown. What you can do to improve it is add the restaurants, add these experiences. That art gallery is a fantastic idea. I mean, that's exactly the kind of retail that these downtowns want, because it's going to change every day. We're going to have to make repeat visits. That's why honestly, it's why Home Goods does so well, because the inventory changes every day, and you never know what you're going to find, so people go back every day. And that's what, so retailers are trying to do that. They're trying to curate their offerings. It's going back to kind of downtowns. What we're trying to create with these malls and retail centers that we have across the country are just kind of recreate these downtown experiences that Long Island has organically. And I think you guys have an incredible opportunity to revitalize these places through retail, through experiences. I really think there's a really great path forward.
Have you met with, thank you.
Have you met with any resistance in trying to transform, or is it too early, trying to transform some of these older malls into more modern, presumably more profitable, and maybe even more mixed-use types of centers? You and I had a discussion. The Palisades Mall has brought in different types of uses. Other malls in other states have brought in other types of uses. I mean, I realize that we're probably not going to be creating a Meisner Park, which is in Boca Raton, as you know, here on Long Island, because we don't have really the landmass, well, at least not in Nassau County, to do it. But I'm wondering whether you've had any success yet, what the resistance has been, if any, and what the constraints have been. Sewers are an issue here on Long Island. Obviously, our roads are, east-west roads are somewhat limited. They're definitely clogged. So if you can just give us some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I can touch on that. Yes, obviously there is resistance. It's both internal and external. One of the biggest problems that all projects with any kind of real retail mass is parking. Parking is by far the biggest issue with any of these projects. Having to provide enough convenient parking to attract patrons, but also being able to kind of create that kind of lively mixed-use experience, streetscape experience is pretty difficult. A lot of times it requires structured parking, which is extremely expensive to build, and not necessarily the most attractive thing to see. I know downtown struggle with that. I know municipalities struggle with parking. Municipalities have a kind of a unique position. They can finance parking publicly. They can charge for parking. It's a lot of times shopping center owners in very traditional suburban locations charging for parking is, forget it. There's no way you can do it. A lot of times our retailers will not let us do it, and Ken can elaborate on that. Retailers will come with their own parking requirements. They will require 5 spaces per 1,000 square feet of leasable area. They know that's how many they need. So both towns, cities, towns, and tenants, landlords are all kind of getting together on parking as well. So it's one of the kind of
But is
biggest
5 stalls per thousand really what's needed? What I was thinking of is Walton Mall. You and I think discussed this.
If you go there on Black Friday, you still have hundreds and hundreds of spaces that there's no cars, there's no parking, because they didn't need them. So the question is, can you use some of that area to convert some of these older malls and bring in new uses such as millennial residential and other kind of uses that are going to draw people in?
Yeah, it's definitely a balance. It's part of the equation when we're putting these projects together. You can study parking, and Kristen could attest to this. You can study parking all day, and which uses use which day parts. Different parts of the day are more popular with shoppers, office tenants, residential tenants, and hotel tenants and hotel guests will use the parking at night, for instance. So there are ways to share parking, and that's kind of a big buzzword in the industry. It's just shared parking, and having it do double duty, not having a parking space that's just that I have to build that's just sitting out there 365 days a year empty doesn't do anybody any good.
Hi everybody, I'm Frank Camerano. My family owns World Gym in East Meadow. We've been in the gym business a long time. I'm part of the East Meadow Chamber of Commerce, and I'm the first vice president of the Nassau Council of Chambers, which is, like you said, the umbrella of all of Nassau County. We're jumping around a bit, but we're kind of going in for, yeah, so, I mean, no, don't be sorry, I'm glad you did, because it reminds me of the Source Mall, right? So, a couple of years ago, Lesso, who owns the Source Mall now, reached out to us, and we went over there for an event. And from what I can remember, their intent was to kind of bring an experience to Long Island that they're doing in China. They're from China. Like kind of like home, not home goods, really, like building a whole bunch of stuff. And along the way, in the past year or so, they kind of like, they rebranded and they kind of reinvented, I think, kind of what, in fact, I have to meet with them and see what's going on, what they're planning on doing with the property. But they're, from the get-go, it was all about experience. I mean, the Source Mall, if you're from around here, it was pretty cool, but you needed a map to get around. It was kind of laid out weird, and they're trying to deal with that. But, truth be told, if, people, whatever they wind up doing at the Source Mall, people are going to go there because they want to. If they buy there, it's not going to be because, we shame them into not buying online, or, the taxes are now kind of even now because of a lot of the work many of us have done, thankfully. It's going to be because they want to go there with the kids or themselves because they want to grab something, they want to see something, they want to hang out maybe in a restaurant that's going to be in there, I'm sure. Like many of the malls you're doing, probably all of them. Maybe hang out for a few hours. So you got, but then all the money that Lesso has, they're still trying to figure these things out, internally, outwardly, whatever. Then you have spaces like in East Meadow, right? My shopping center is actually owned by these two landlords, right? So you would never know that by looking at it, but sure enough there is. And the first Home Depot on Long Island was in East Meadow, right? So it closed a few years ago. It kind of like moved over to Levittown. And the space, which was retail at the time, sat vacant, and they're actually converting about 60% of the space to CarMax, which is going to be, CarMax is, if the project's going forward, is really, I guess they're the biggest, largest in the country, used cars. And I've seen some of their facilities in New Jersey, and they're pretty nice, right? That's retail, but it's kind of, they're looking, we're looking to find out what to do with these huge spaces. Like space that big, it's kind of, I guess, harder to find, to get like smaller stores in there. It's an odd location. There's going to be about 40% left. There's been talk about, doing different things with the other 40%. A gym is one of them. I don't like that idea. Okay. Yes. Okay. But yeah. So other retail space, I'm seeing conversions to, believe it or not, storage facilities. There's one right down the block from there going to a high-tech, state-of-the-art storage facility. It might sound like an odd thing to do, but there is a need for it. I imagine that if you have a spot that several businesses went through and not much is happening, like they're going through businesses, different things, restaurants, and there was auto parts store. Storage facility seems kind of safe, right? So I guess I'm jumping around a little bit, right? Is it your turn? You go first?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you. Ken Shuckman, I'm the president of Shuckman Realty. We're based here on Long Island. We focus mostly on retail. So I want to just ask everybody a question real quick. How many people in the audience went to a store on Black Friday? Raise your hand, please. It's less than half. How many people bought something online on Black Friday? Raise your hand. How many people bought something before or after and just ignored Black Friday because it was just a day off? No, I mean, that's quite significant. So we're here to talk about downtown areas and talking about retail and talking about what's happening on Long Island. And my father is sitting here in the back, started my company in 1978, and he's been developing retail shopping centers, a developer and broker for the last 50 years. So when it comes to big box and supermarket anchored centers, there isn't a shopping center on the island that we have not done a transaction in. So I get asked this question all the time, so what's happening with the death of retail? Is it death? Is it evolution? Is it apocalypse? It's all the above, depending upon what the story is. AC Moore of blessed memory, we just lost last week. It seems like we're losing someone every week. So how does this impact downtown areas? So I want to just bring up two things. This is my opinion, I didn't get this from anywhere else, is that there's a sense of community that people need and want as a result of losing the mall, the evolution of the mall. I used to want to go and, when I was growing up in Dix Hills, we used to go hang out with our friends at the Waltman Mall, and you want to see somebody, socialize. Now there's something else that I think that is going on as a result of online sales, is that people need a sense of community. They want to find reasons to get together. So we have a big problem on Long Island. We even had a bigger problem, thank you, Governor Cuomo, with holding back gas lines to prevent restaurants being developed. But hopefully that's being resolved now. But what we're seeing in downtown areas, we were just involved with TriTech in the leasing up of the retail of their project, is that people love to go hang out with each other, right? People love to go see each other, right? So what's happening is the downtown areas the retail is going to flourish as a result of the online retail hurting the big box centers. Think about it. If I want to now go and hang out with my friends, and I'm not going to the mall, but I'm going to hang out at bars and restaurants, there are now opportunities for retailers to open up downtown as opposed to wanting to be in the mall. First of all, the rent is significantly less, right? And you're now going to where the people are, right? We're always looking in retail for who the anchor tenant is, right? Who's the anchor? So my father always talks about this, so nowadays there's different types of anchors, right? The train station's the anchor, and now, about 20 years ago, I was talking to a developer, and he was telling me something about going vertical on Long Island, and I said, it'll never happen. He goes, no, it's happening, but it's like watching paint dry, right? When you wake up one day in 20 years, you're gonna see, like, when did this all happen, right? Well, it is happening. We're seeing a movement of people wanting to develop their downtown areas and creating that anchor. That anchor is around the train station, right? Less and less cars. We're talking about cars. I know a developer's building in 4 villages a hotel. I'm like, why are you building a hotel in downtown? It's because he says people don't want to have to drive. They don't have to rent a car. A business person wants to go. They want to go to a quaint town. Village of Babylon is awesome, right? Patchogue. I can't believe it, but it's called the Williamsburg of Suffolk County. It's like the cool area, right? Live at 5. So I think there's a double whammy going to happen here with retail becoming, and the malls getting less traffic, and the people being attracted to downtown areas. I think as a result is going to attract more retails to go downtown. So one last thing, and I'll stop talking. What is the type of retail though, right? So I was just with my friend Rob Lascalzo at the Hub, their massive 50+ acre project they're building by the train station over there, which is absolutely magnificent. We have a national retailer that we toured the property with, but Rob always talks about with so much passion about Long Island. We have, and you talked about art galleries, we have great entrepreneurs on Long Island who are coming up with new and fresh ideas. I think our downtown areas should embrace the local entrepreneurs, whether it's an omni-channel, whether it's a wine bar, whether it's, even apparel. We did apparel deals in downtown in Patchogue. So I think that that's going to happen the reverse. Retailers are going to want to go where the people are. And I think that's going to give a long-term positive impact to the downtown areas as long as we continue to approve those projects, both for young people and for older people.
Yeah, thank you. So you recently bought how many malls? 150 malls. What's your plan for them? Do you plan to try and convert them depending upon the area, the density. If what we're hearing is, so we all know that there's been some obviously impact by e-commerce, although I just read that malls are generating more revenue now than ever. So I'm trying to kind of harmonize what I'm hearing, and since you're kind of the mall guy, well, I did. I'm trying to get a better handle on that situation. And then I also want to ask the panel, with the changing retail environment, I'm thinking of Patchogue, I'm thinking of Riverhead, which has multifamily development going on Main Street. Farmingdale obviously has gone through it. Are other parts of Long Island, zoning code-wise, keeping up with the times, so to speak, in terms of permitting that type of development, at least under its zoning code? You know, dealing with communities, civic groups, is a totally different issue. But are we keeping our zoning, I know I'm skipping around a little bit, but are we keeping our zoning codes up to date by and large? Or does there need to really be an effort to do that?
Wow. What do you want to do? Okay, all right, we'll do malls first. So when malls were originally developed in the kind of 60s and 70s, they, in a lot of these very suburban and kind of rural areas, frankly, they were the center of commerce. They were, like we said, they were the gathering places for young people, for old people. They were just, it's where all the life was in the town, and it became its downtown. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of the original enclosed malls actually started as open air centers that got enclosed because that was the trend at the time, and what they were trying to recreate was a downtown. So what we are trying to do with our malls, and it doesn't work in all locations, because either the mall's very well performing, and it is really the only place to shop in any given community. But what we are trying to do is, draw people back through a mix of uses. We talk about entertainment. The large format entertainment uses are taking a lot of space. They're taking a lot of the old department stores, Round One and Dave & Buster's and those kind of guys. The movie theaters are expanding. But what we're also trying to add is other types of uses that draw people on a daily basis. Office space, co-working is a kind of a big buzzword these days. I mean, WeWork hasn't gotten the best press lately, but co-working is an important part of a lot of these communities, because if you work from home but you need to get out and you need to take a conference call or have a meeting, and you need a professional place to do it, these co-working spaces work really well. So a lot of those are being introduced into malls, and even mall companies are contemplating starting their own kind of incubators. Housing as well. Housing is also an important part of bringing 24-hour life to these places. So we're planning multifamily developments on a lot of them. Hotels are also a good draw. Even self-storage. I mean, there's we need to store all the stuff we just bought. So there are a lot of uses for this space. As retail evolves and retailers shrink their footprints and don't need as much physical space, there are lots of ways to kind of backfill this with other activity to make these malls the center of commerce as they were originally designed.
Thank you. And then let me ask Kristen this question.
And that is, this is the second part really, and that is, are our codes generally, since Boulder has so much development on Long Island, are our codes keeping up with what Aiden and his company may want to do with some of their properties on Long Island?
many of the towns on Long Island are looking at their big picture and zoning to put studies together in whether it's downtown areas or industrial areas to see how they can maximize those areas for the things that are needed. So we are seeing the towns, sometimes it takes more time than we'd like to see, but we do see them doing studies to see how they can develop the code to allow some multifamily or mixed use properties in downtown areas and industrial areas that are very underdeveloped and need some life brought into them. Islip was looking at the corridor along Vets Highway. Right now, you're not allowed to put any restaurants there, and there's all this office space and hotels and associated with the airport, and you can't go and get something to eat. So it's critical. So they were looking at their zoning code for that, and there's a lot of other examples of that throughout Long Island. So some of it is dated and needs to be looked at, but there are many studies going on.
You can't answer the what?
I was just talking about the code that's dated. We're talking about parking, and there are regulations in the code that we're helping a family redevelop or reposition their shopping center. They lost their shopping center anchor, their supermarket anchor, and so what do you want to put into a shopping center that's going to attract people these days? It's gyms and restaurants. No, the code does not allow us to do that. I'm not going to attack the town right now, but so I'm not going to name it. You could probably pick it. Anyway, so now you have a vacancy problem and you have an antiquated code, and the highest and best uses we cannot accept into the shopping center, right? We can, but we're told, it'll take about 18 months and, it's a 50-50 shot. Who wants to go for that, right? So now you have a vacant shopping center and, we're having a hard time. So we actually went, we're consultants and brokers, we actually initiated to go and speak with this particular town and say, you want it blighted, you want help? And it actually worked. It actually, let's see if the proof will be in the pudding, let's see if it opens. But they said, bring it in and we'll try to fast track it because you're right, we do not want these shopping centers to be vacant. But to the answer to the antiquated code, they need to definitely become more flexible to fast track these approvals.
So I think what we're learning is that it's not just e-commerce, the increase in e-commerce. It's really the changing demographics, the changing desires, the experience that people want to have that's resulting in this shift in the traditional paradigm. So I thought it's about 12:15. We'd throw this open to any questions that people may have. Yes.
Doug Hines, Design Development Group out in Stony Brook. Ken Schuckman just answered my question, actually. We do a lot of work for shopping center owners who struggle with these sanitary and parking constraints on redevelopment and new types of uses that require more of both. We see the service sector coming into those offices, medical offices and so forth. But what we found, as you did, it's not just a matter of getting the code changed because they're very reluctant to do that. It's getting to the decision makers and encouraging them to be more flexible. If the parking's not backing up out onto the street, let us have it. So I applaud that approach, and I think it's more effective for the shopping centers, which are positioned between the mall and the downtown, and which are suffering.
Any thoughts?
In my previous life before Habitat, I was on the ZBA in Brookhaven, so I had a chance to review a lot of applications in that capacity. And I think the biggest thing that you can lead with when you're trying to get a decision maker to pay attention is to deliver your why. And I think that's what you're touching on. Like, why would we need this extraordinary parking when we're not even using what's here? So when you're trying to push forward with a concept that might be different from what's out there now, if you lead with your why, it's probably a lot easier for the decision makers to sell that, because that's what they're gonna have to do. They're gonna have to go back to their constituents, and they're gonna have to explain why they were flexible on this. So lead with your why.
Any other questions? Yes, yeah.
Neil Hoffman, Architect Architects. I know Brookfield's involved in the city a lot, as you guys are as well. Is this a suburban, is e-commerce affecting suburban retailers more than the city? The city has a density and an excitement of its own. And you go to the city, there's people on the streets walking around, and you go to the downtown city, and there's not some people walking around. Is it affected differently there? Is this an issue of density? Because of the way the way suburbs have been developed, and the shopping centers that you have to drive to, people in the city get out of their house and they walk down to the local store. Is retail affected as much in the city?
Yes, the answer is yes. I mean, all retail is kind of vulnerable to online sales. It doesn't necessarily correlate to density. Density does help. I mean, when you are pitching a retailer on a space, you definitely talk about the number of people and how much money they make and all that stuff, because that definitely goes into a retailer's decision to locate at a specific location. But New York City is not immune. There are stores closing on Fifth Avenue. There are stores closing in Greenwich Village. You know, places that are, it may be partly the landlord's fault, just asking too much rent, you know, that might be part of it. Brookfield does. We bought a whole city block worth of retail in Greenwich Village, right on Bleecker Street, and for just that reason, because there were local artisans and kind of people with ideas that needed space. And they were having a hard time attracting national retailers or, you know, high-end vendors. So what we did was we kind of curated a mix of tenants along the street, and it's working out really well. It's giving people places to try out their businesses, to try out their products. But the answer is no, the city's not immune.
So, Rite Aid, Walgreens, Duane Reade, no longer expanding. I don't know how many people go to a bank besides getting maybe some cash, but people don't have to, the millennials will never know that you have to go to the bank on Friday, deposit your salary check, right? What does that mean, you know? What's a check? So the banks aren't expanding, and then you have apparel, the high street retail stopped expanding. So, and then one of the problems with the city of New York is that people were buying properties with projected rents because they thought it was always be growing at 10 to 15% per year. And what's happened now is that people are planning projects. It used to be that retail was ancillary and to the residential. So they didn't even put it in their pro forma. Right? It was people, you have a dry cleaner downstairs, you have, convenience store. So they used to not even put in the pro forma. Now, the city project's been dependent on the pro forma for the retail, right? So in addition, what happens is all the prices have gone up. So whether it's people have been refinancing based upon rent or not. We handle a building on 42nd Street between 3rd and Lex, right by Grand Central Terminal. When we are hired to do the job, the 2 vacant spaces, we say, don't take a penny less than $400. 3 years later, we're getting 200. We finally agreed, caved in, right? So, it's about supply and demand. The prices are going down. But just talking about retail and online, how that's affecting, I just bumped into a friend of mine who represents one of the major banks on the island, and it has not made news, but banks are closing in mass all over the place, right? I'm assuming, I just lost my Chase, in Hewlett. I'm assuming everybody's seen one. So these are opportunities. At the same time, they have big safes. You got to try to get them out. Is it going to be urgent care? What is it going to be? That's what the dilemma that we all have to face, and our towns and municipalities need to work with us to try to get, a change of use approved quicker than we've been seeing in the past.
Frank, what is the civic associations that your group represents, what's their view of the Nassau Hub development as it stands now?
I was looking for an excuse to bring it up, right? Since Paul's right in front of me. I lost the chase in my development too, this month, it's a big one too. I gotta go all the way across town. Oh my God. Yeah, you have two others in East Meadow, but it's still so inconvenient. Okay, so the hub, Paul and I, and Julie, everyone's involved with trying to, with RXR, develop what it's going to wind up being, right? So it's almost like, what do they call it, where there's two suns that spin around each other, you see it on TV. The other sun is the Belmont project, right, which is still in Nassau County, and the shovel went in the ground already, right, which is a great thing. I guess both projects, there's going to be retail, definitely experience-driven, and look, the truth be told, they do affect each other. Before the Belmont project, I'm just going to speak for myself. I'm from Franklin Square originally, and Paul's Uniondale. I was kind of holding my breath, my back pocket, hoping maybe it would change or not happen, because I want to see the Islanders in the Nassau Coliseum. But look, let's just face it. They're both great projects. They're looking to, experience-driven, working with the communities around them. I haven't had, Julie sure has, but I haven't had any experience with the Elmont project, but Paul and I plenty with in Uniondale, where RXR, the developers, are looking to the community to try and figure out what's happening with retail. How can they, it's not just about them though, right, Paul? It's about how they can affect and help the rest of the Uniondale community, Most people don't realize, I found out at the beginning of this, that the Roosevelt Field Mall is in Uniondale, right? I thought it was always Garden City. So there's a lot of stuff going on in Uniondale, right? So how can a developer, succeed, spending millions and millions of dollars, kind of like dead in the middle of the town of Hempstead, and, I guess, meet the needs of the community, which is still, everyone's still working on that too, and yet, hopefully, in their case, make a ton of money, and everyone be happy. And, that, I'm not gonna say it's a problem, because it's not, because we're doing it, but, it's the same dilemma all around. I talked before about the source mode. It's like, there's more than one reason why the process takes time, don't get me wrong, but everyone, I guess, is kind of like easing into it, right? We're not gonna come up with a plan, I don't think they're gonna come up with a plan from the get-go. At least those times are gone, and they're gonna just build something. This is what we're doing. There's mixed use going in at the hub for sure, right? It's definitely going in for sure. But even then, there's a phase 1 and a phase 2. As confident as they are of the housing they're putting in, interesting stuff, right? But they're still gonna do like half first and see how it goes. In a period of time, like about a year, is it a year between them? Something like that, and go for the second half. So I guess that's my hope story, right? I don't know. Did I miss anything?
No.
There you go. Can you want to say anything?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
So the panel has come to the conclusion, I believe rightfully so, that there's a synergy between online and brick and mortar. So my question is actually to Diane and to Frank. So Diane, what are you doing in your shop to encourage online shopping? Do you do that? And Frank, since you represent the Nassau Council of Chambers, what does the Nassau Council do and recommend to the chambers in order to encourage all their members, which is over 4,000, to do the same thing, to have modules, to shop, to have people shop online through their businesses?
So for me, the online presence has been a game changer. I've been at Eastern Arts for a year, and very shortly after I joined, I implemented our art store. Every show that we have in our gallery has every piece of art that we're selling at that time up on our website. You can buy it online, you can see what we're selling online and make a trip to our shop, which is really what happens. So my online business doesn't really sell anything per se. It drives people to my gallery, in which then they see it in real life and buy. And that did happen in our Frankie Says Punk Show. There are people through social media that had never heard of East End Arts before, ever. They live in the city, they summer in New Jersey, they never come to the Hamptons, they never heard of Riverhead before, and they're suddenly in my art gallery buying really expensive art that they saw online.
So you're using it to drive traffic, you're not using it to sell online?
I can sell online, and very little of it actually sells online without that experience. The other piece to creating that experience is that many of the times in my art gallery, the artist who's showing there is there. That's really important component and a big change for East End Arts is to allow the consumer to meet the artist, hear their story. We do a lot of artist talks where you get to interact. Paul Schinkel's pretty famous. He was part of the folks, I mean, the young people over there, I'm sure, are on YouTube all the time. This was InnerTube. That was his channel back in the punk era. And we had him Skyped in, and people gathered at my gallery to meet Paul Schinkel. So it's about creating the excitement through your web presence to either sell things or drive people to your place. But when you drive them there, you need to also offer them the experience. It's multi-pronged.
I'm sorry, do you track who comes in through your website? Is there an analytical going on here?
Yeah, we have, we ask people when they come to our site, so our selling website is built into our site, but it's actually really a standalone site, but if you didn't know that, you wouldn't know that. And when you come to the shopping portion of our site, we ask you to sign up. And then typically what happens is that invokes some kind of communication, especially if you've never interacted with us before. Where are you at? Where can I stay? Are there restaurants in the area? It provokes a whole bunch of conversations that don't necessarily relate 100% to me, but that's why I'm there. That's why I have 2 art galleries in Riverhead, is to provoke people to come in, to come to the aquarium, to stay at the Hyatt, to stay at the Preston House, to eat in our restaurants, to have drinks at the great little craft place that opened up next door. And it's creating that kind of excitement, but without the web presence, that the guy that came from the city that had never even been to Riverhead, never mind the Hamptons, came about 2 pieces of high-end art for me.
If I can just interject, I agree with you, Diane. Our downtowns are suffering because we don't have diversity of specialty stores within them. And parking is also an issue, and the Nassau Council of Chambers of Commerce has been fighting that for the past 4 years. We still haven't come up with a really viable solution and an affordable solution. But I think the diversity in items that you carry within your downtown and how you promote that is what has to speak loud enough to save our downtown.
And that's the neat thing about having an art gallery in your downtown, because those exhibits are changing all the time. And I've made a very conscious effort to change up what was happening in my space. We've been around since 1972, but East End Arts found itself in a little pickle last year, which is why I showed up. We were highly weighted down with debt. I'm proud to say in the last year I paid down about $100,000 worth of that debt. Literally on my back, I had to fire everybody. I've recently gotten a grant where I can hire a marketing director and development director to come alongside me and help me with the rebuilding. But it's working, and it's working because of exactly what you said. We're bringing different and new things into the art gallery all the time, which is creating a flow, like you said, the home goods experience. It's that you never know what you're going to see. The place is clean now, like the floors have been redone, the walls have been redone. It looks like an art gallery. It feels right when you walk in. My employees that work in the art gallery are fully trained. They know everything about the artist. They know about what's happening at East End Arts, and they can offer you an experience which is different than what was happening before, which is why it's changing.
So go to Frank and Frank, what is the National Council of Chambers and all the chambers doing about encouraging online?
Okay, well, your first statement, I would say that when it came to, you mentioned synergy between online and local. I wouldn't say that. I would say that with the, with the internet sales tax, I'm not going to say that's all squared away yet, but we're getting there, right? It's with that. Before that happened, it was kind of easy to fall into the rabbit hole and say it's all about. That's the problem. That's the problem. Sure, Amazon would deliver for free, Prime, I'm the quote-unquote Prime guy, but that was part of the problem, but it wasn't, it's not the big problem, because now, okay, so now it's squared away, now what's next? With the National Council, Dennis Grossman just came in as president, so I gotta be careful what I say, I'm gonna get in trouble. Our biggest thing is, to help our members, which are all the chambers in Nassau County, help their members, right? So, how do we do that? Well, first of all, yes, since it was definitely a problem, the internet sales tax, so we tackle that. But really, it's about, and moving forward, let's just face it, just like in any other, kind of a business, because we are a business after all, every chamber is a business, and the council's a business, right? We have limited resources. Now, I'm not talking about the limited resources of the council. I'm talking about the limited resources of our members' the businesses, the mom and pops. Hey, look, even right behind my gym, the Stu Leonard's, right? Our goal is to, by bringing all the chambers together, pool all resources to kind of level the playing field, right? But also, as part of that, let's just face it, when you have a large company, you have people all over the place. No large company started that way, right? It started small. Might be a couple friends in the garage, and now it's Apple, So it's getting everyone together. Look, the internet plays a part even in your business, right? So how do you manipulate the internet? I'm not talking about control, and I'm talking about to your means. How do you market on the internet? Even understanding Facebook or Instagram, what the heck is that all about? I'm still trying to figure that out, right? But we have people on staff, kind of not staff, members of a board and all. That's what they do for their business, right? So we reach out to our members, which are chambers, and we say, hey, look, we're going to help you, okay? Meaning like maybe one of your board members or someone there, will educate you. I'm giving you a hypothetical situation, of course, right? Or train you or help you so you can then offer the service, meaning, hey, have kind of a work group in your chamber, in your community, because we're talking about communities, right? Help your businesses market online, right? So now, again, it doubles back on online, right? So, but what about the business in say downtown Merrick or something, right? They might or might not benefit from much online stuff, which is fine. What about that experience? Meaning, they're the best pizza in the world. They really do. No one knows it. They have the best seating. No one knows it. They don't even know they're there. Or how about this? How do they, maybe it's just about floor planning or a retail establishment, layout of stuff, or maybe if they moved over one block, even though it might be a pain in the butt to do it, it'd be a lot better, I could come up with 1,000 different things that would bore anybody, but the truth is, that's really what our goal is, not to necessarily help every small business become a huge one, unless that's what they want. We'll help them do that, right, Joe? But it's about not being lost in the shuffle, okay? To have, I'm in a shopping center, right? And we talk, we're going next to the UPS and, but the reality of it is we want our businesses to have the ability to not only survive, but to succeed, right? But you can't do that without knowledge, Hi, Dennis.
Say a word?
Sure.
I think you have a huge transformation going on in the demographics of retail across the board. The internet has introduced a whole new perspective. If you have a widget business, you have a direct one-on-one competition. Somebody's not going to leave their computer to run to a store to get a widget, pick an order. If you have a service business that has a good experience and businesses that have some product, like New Balance, a shoe store, they have 2 stores, but they're selling mostly online, and they sell a decent amount in their stores, so they balance out. You have to balance out your businesses where you're creating a good experience that somebody wants to be there and come into something, and you also have to have very good service where they want to come and say hello, because people don't want to sit alone in front of a computer all day. They want to come out and have a decent experience. So you really have to move along with the times, because if Long Island didn't, we would still have posts in front of the stores with buggies and buggy whips and so on and so forth. We're now in a whole different era, and we're transforming again. We're going through what I call the pothole transformation, where things are a little bit down now. You have some vacant stores, you have this, you have that, because we all haven't figured it out yet. That's the bottom line. But if you look at a store like Target, they just did very well during the season. Certain stores did fabulous. Other ones didn't do so well. So you take a look at the guys who put a lot of work into research to do well, and see what we can learn from what they did, and put that into the smaller form in your local stores and shopping centers. And I think that will begin to turn itself into a form that might give us a formula that works, because we don't have the exact formula yet. If you have a delicatessen or a pizza place or a service business, they can't serve you pizza online. There are things they can do, and there are things they can do that you can't match them with. So why try?
If I can just add to what the National Council of Chambers of Commerce has been doing over the past 8 years for our members, I have to say and give credit to the Nassau County IDA, who came to us over the past 2 administrations to help small businesses where they kind of get a bad rap because they're always helping the developers get all these kinds of tax credits. And as Main Street businesses, we don't see any of that. So they came to us and they put some money into advertising about where the money goes that you collect when you collect sales tax in the downtown area versus what you would not pay sales tax online. And fortunately, we made enough trips up to Albany, and we did get past the legislation, and we're just waiting for the ink to dry. But we have worked very hard on the legislation to level the playing field so that sales tax is now collected on all purchases, internet and bricks and mortar, in New York State. That's the first thing. The second thing, they came to us this time to help us promote a scavenger hunt that would bring local residents into our communities, shop in our communities, take a picture of the sales receipt and the store that you purchased it in. And it is a little bit of a raffle because the first people who responded are going to be the winners, but they are going to get gift cards to, again, spend in their downtown areas as part of their winnings. So we are working on very creative ideas to keep them shopping in our stores and, again, experience what happens in the downtown. So we're working on it, and as a past president, you know how difficult this is. But we're making it happen little by little.
It is? How'd I do? Okay so far? So I'm not in trouble with Dennis for you too, that's great. Yeah, the scavenger hunt we did with the IDA and the Nassau County Executive's Office, so, and that worked out pretty well in the past week, so everyone seemed to have a lot of fun. Not only, I mean, if you saw the online pictures and stuff, it was great, but a lot of people were also, tons of them emailing stuff in. So man, the emails we got and the pictures, everybody's going nuts, selfies and all
It works
this.
the whole program through the internet and through Facebook and through our website. So we've had about 14 people so far who went to at least four stores in their community.
Aiden, this is not so much a question, but more of a statement. So you had said that the outdoor malls like Roosevelt started as a downtown center. That might be in some areas in the country, say in the Midwest. Here in Nassau County, we already had a bunch of downtowns, whether it's Great Neck or Washington, or whatever. The mall came afterwards, and actually it was the beginning, if you will, of the draw from the traditional, typical downtowns to the center of the center, in this case, Nassau County, it actually drew away, and it started to draw the local businesses out of business, if you would, the moms and pops. But what's interesting, because I travel up to Massachusetts, Berkshire Mall. In the 90s, it was great guns, right? You go there now, it's a ghost town. And you know this because these are the properties that you're buying up as all these big box stores and some of the big anchors are pulling back because of the online sales and stuff like that. So, and then you have like the Berkshire Prime Outlet. What did they do? What you guys were talking about. They're trying to recreate the downtown in a mall setting, you know, with using outlets as their, so it's all part of the retail changing environment.
Yeah, and that's a great observation. And it is something we're seeing, you know, kind of all across the country. These malls drew businesses out of downtowns, but the businesses are going back downtown because you get a much different experience.
Okay, I think our, unless there's any quick questions, I think our time is up. I want to thank the panelists.
And I want to thank all of you for coming, and I guess lunch is served.